Hi, this is Codename Gamma, and if you're watching this, you're probably a subscriber on my YouTube channel, or you're a Patreon. Either way, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and watching. This is going to be an update video about what's coming in the new version of the cheat table, and everything else that's going on, along with a little bit of background about how I managed to get some of that unused stuff into game. I know there was a ton of questions for that, about how it's done and how you can do it yourselves. And the whole thing is just a bit complicated, but I'm going to try to dumb it down as much as I can. It might not be it might not be something you guys can do yourselves, but at least you'll understand how it works and what might be possible in the future. Let me start off by saying I managed to get the cheat table updated. You know, it took about a day and a half. But everything's here and it's working now. We have the player resizing and sprite resizing. Everything else that's new, it's still a little bit in flux because there's still a lot of organizing here that needs to be done. But yeah, pretty much everything that was there before is here now, plus some. Special stage and bonus stages, I still need to go through and get some pointers for a lot of the stuff that's missing. There's about 3 or 4 different pointers I need to get. Each one of those pointers that I need to get requires restarting the game 3 times and refinding those values at least 3 times. So it takes time and they're not the most fun things to find, so that's why they're not there. But when you guys on YouTube hopefully get your next version, it'll be in there. And Patreon subscribers should have a version with those soon. So, it's just a matter of just please being patient. We still have background pausing, so let's go ahead and turn that on. We can have some music to listen to while that goes on. Mean Bean Machine, boss stuff. Mania mode, we have a bunch of boss hit counters, so if you want to change how many hits a boss takes, you can do that here. These were graciously provided by a user who I'm going to thank in the video description because I can't really think of his name right now, and I don't want to mess it up. But yeah, if you guys have stuff you want to add, feel free to contact me and we can get it added into the table too. These are super easy to change if you want. Some of them count up, but I believe that some of them actually do count down, so it's up to you about how you want to deal with it. We also have a lot more scripts, like the stop time one. We turn it on, it just stops our timer. Pretty simple stuff. If you guys have used it before, it's pretty much the same stuff now. Player colors. I got these values from the ink objects from Press Garden 1. Because they change your color, I was able to sniff those out, and we can now change our player colors. Sadly, though, that only worked for Tails and Knuckles. It does change the color on Sonic, but for whatever reason, the game uses a different set of palette colors for Sonic than the ones that are changed, which means that at some point in development, probably after they decided to scrap that level or scrap those objects, they changed how Sonic works a little bit, and that's why those color changes don't work, so that's why they're not included. Each of these colors here are a 16-bit color value. In the description I'm going to link to a pretty good web color picker for that. But since we don't have Knuckles, let's try to change Tails into Knuckles here. Gonna put in these values, and hopefully, if this is done right, we'll see them turn red. 3. Oh, there we go. Starting to seem to turn red. And there we go, pink Tails. So yeah, that's pretty much how that's done. You can make your own custom color palette and you can set it. There's no other way to really change it, but if you want to lock it down, when you transition between levels, it'll stay the way it should be. What else? There's the sprite resizing. I'm still missing a value that returns the hitbox back to normal, but if you just want to mess with the size of your sprite, you can do it here. Change that to 4 to 4, and then to enable this, we want to change our resize state from normal to resize, and there we go. We can turn this up like all the way to any number we want in any size we want. If we want it to be normal, we just change it back. I believe it's 1. No, 1 is small, 2 is normal, and then 3 and anything up is bigger, so there we go. Sadly, the hitbox changes won't change unless you're in Metallic Madness. Same thing is that we have another value called Player Sprite, and if you change that to a certain value in Metallic Madness, it'll make your character chibi-sized or chibi-like, because that's how the game does it. The problem is that when you're not in Metallic Madness, then those sprites aren't loaded in the game. So sadly, without some other hacking around, you can't get that to work in any level you want. What else do we got here? Jump height, acceleration, super ring requirement. We can lower this to 1 if we want. We can remove the 50 ring requirement. We can remove the emerald check, so now if I get some kind of ring and I jump, I should be able to turn super. There we go. Along with, what else? Super status. The egg reverie fix is here, along with... I better get out of that. Along with other egg reverie changes, so if you want to disable the dash cooldown or disable the ring cooldown, that's fine. Shield type. So, lightning. And there we go. And, yeah, everything else is pretty much fine. There's 1 or 2 camera ones I still need to fix, but for the most part, they work just fine. Not sure what else you guys want to mess with. There's player object spawning and debug. So in here, if we wanted to turn on debug mode, we can turn on debug mode. If we want to enable the teleporter and random box in our debug, there it is. Let's find them here. And yeah. And that's how those work. We also have a few different other things here. So let's go ahead and bring up our dev menu, stage select, and now we have Greenhill up. So we're ready to select that. What we're going to do is change our Greenhill Motobug object. And normally this is set to 55 in Greenhill 1, but we're going to change that to 9. So this is going to change the first Motobug that we see in Greenhill to a player object. So let's see what happens when we go into Greenhill now. And there's our other Sonic. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works, but if you can see, Sonic isn't exactly functioning right. He doesn't ever spawn in correctly because we're not setting him up correctly to spawn. So that's why you see in the video he'll kind of bug out or, you know, act weird. If we land on an object, he'll just disappear or get stuck. Yeah, so he disappeared. So there's a lot of problems with it. It's not exactly perfect. One day we will get player spawning working correctly and maybe be able to do things like spawn a whole bunch of Knuckles, but as of right now, it's just not possible. Same thing, we can actually turn this moto bug into basically anything we wanted to. If we wanted to spawn a ring there, we could. If we wanted to spawn an item box, we did, but as we changed it while the game was running, the game didn't like it and it crashed. So, you know, player spawning just isn't good. You know, just stuff can happen with it. Now then, the way that I managed to get these objects into game, into at least the later ones, is every stage has its own defined set of objects. So if we go into the stages folder, and let's do Greenhill Zone, for example. So where's Greenhill Zone? And if we go to stage config, we'll see here checker ball, moto bug, buzz bomber, crab meat, splats. These are all things that are loaded into the level. So if we go over here, we go to sprites, Greenhill Zone. These are all the objects that are in Greenhill that we can put into this file. 90% of them are already, well, all of them are in here, and in most cases, everything in there is going to be in here. The only difference is if we go to sprites, and let's go to Press Garden 1. We have stuff like ink. And for some reason we have the ice objects. I don't know why. Ink wipe. Paper rollers. You know, just tons of stuff. Or there's a few things that are there that aren't used. Here we have the SP5000, the SP500s. And those are actually in the stage config, so those were easy to spawn, and that's why you were able to see them earlier this month when I first found them, because they were already in the object list and loaded by the stage. So to get those other objects, what we have to do is go back into our data, stages, pulp cell stand stage config. And if you can see here, we have, I had to find out where to stick them in. So luckily ice and ink have the same number of letters, so they fit in easy. Unfortunately, we can't just add more stuff to this list. We have to, maybe if I wasn't in Studiopolis Zone, that'd be more helpful. Here we go. Stage config. And let's open the backup, and if I switch between them, you can see here I switched door with ink wipe because they had the same number of letters. And what else? I think that was about it because the ice was somewhere else. Yeah, that's it. But yeah, we have our SP500. Like I said, so now because the ink wipe is in the game files now, it's in this stage config, it gets loaded in place of the other object, SPZ door, whatever the heck that was, now is in place, now gets not loaded, and the ink wipe gets loaded. So then everything just, you know, falls into place for the most part. Now that gets loaded by the stage, we can use our ring box object and we can set that to the correct number, and then we can spawn it in using debug mode. The problem is with spawning it into debug mode, there's certain objects that require more parameters to set up. For example, the tubes in chemical plant zone all have different variations, but they're all the same object. Like, you know, it may say the tube turns left or the tube goes on for like 3 inches or whatever it says, right? All the tubes are just one object, so you need those additional parameters to spawn different variants of the same object. And sadly, with debug mode spawning, we can't exactly do that. That's just the limit. What I did manage to do is use the manic editor. And I had somebody help me modify it. And using that, we were able to spawn in the entities correctly. And doing that, we can set whatever variants or whatever other setup is required for them. So here with the SP500, there's a lens variable, a height variable, ink sources for some reason, which I filled in but didn't seem to do anything. Here with the SP500 Mark II, it has a start and a stop, and then rows and length. So filling those in tells the object exactly how to behave. And you know, you can customize this. If you wanted this to be the entire stage length, you could. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. It's just, you know, that's how it is. Turning that off, we can see what our entities look like. Right now, the stage editor is pretty basic. If I wanted to just remove pieces of the stage, I could, and I had to do that so that way we had room to play around with there. Sadly, I can't go into this stage right now because of the update. My data folder now no longer works with the new version, so I gotta fix that. So sadly, I can't show you guys how this map looks in-game again, but you know, you saw the video. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how you get objects that aren't in the object list by when the stage loads to get into that object list. Some things you can do. In the last video I did, you notice that there was a ring field in Egg Reverie Zone. There's a ring field object that creates that ring field. So by replacing an object in Press Garden, in that stage config, I was able to get the ring field object in. And because it doesn't need any extra graphics or anything, because it's already based on the basic ring object, I can then spawn in as many ring fields as I want. It just required that additional setup. Another thing that we have too is a new version of ManiaMaker. Let me go ahead and start this up for you guys because we have some really cool stuff to show. Gotta turn on my controller for this. So it's fully updated and working. We now have Boost to Win. Let's enable debug mode. That's fine. Rings. Data rings. Update our lives. And yeah, that's pretty much good to go on that. I think our lives value didn't update, so there's still some stuff that needs to be ironed out. Let's enable dynamic camera and boost to win. So now if we press our super key, we just get an instant boost of, you know, boost. And our, of course, our camera follows. So, you know, that's always nice. Sadly, you just gotta be careful because sometimes you can get pushed into objects. Let's try this here. Yeah. Going super while doing that can shove you into walls and other weird places. So just be aware of that. We also have manual camera mode, so if we turn that to manual, my right thumbstick will now move the camera around. So if you ever want to get a custom perspective or, you know, look and see what's beyond a wall, you can do that now. Yeah, and with that we can kind of see the background not quite load in right there, so you know, it's something fun to play around with. If you guys like messing around with that kind of stuff, you can now manually mess around with the camera along with having dynamic cameras. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, a new version of the cheat table is coming to YouTube. It won't have everything quite yet. The table that will have everything is going to go through Patreon subscribers first, but I should have a full version with everything, with colors, with the additional objects for you by the end of the week. Let's reattach that. Keep current code list. No. Disable that. There we go. Tails turns red again. We want debug mode, so let's change our objects, our animals, and our explosions. One thing I'm going to list is my Greenhill object list. So these are the numbers that are in most levels that I just went through and manually made a list of. I don't have all the levels here, but I do have some of them. Here in Oil Ocean Zone, you can see I started at 45. And that's because mostly all the first 45 objects in the game are loaded based on if the game needs it or not. So the first 45 usually never change, so you can usually bet that 14 is always going to be a ring box, 13 is going to be a ring, etc., etc. So in this case, we found out that 24 was explosions, 14 was a ring box, 12 is our debug mode object. So, you know, we had the pointer for that, and it turns out that that object is what you turn into when you go into debug mode that spawns the other objects. So, you know, now you know how the game works and what happens when you do go into debug mode. Let's see here. So we know 28 is animals, so let's replace animals with let's change those to player objects. So now if I, you know, kill something, there's another Sonic. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much as simple as that. What else can we do? We can change our explosions to bring out monitors, and then we can have our animals be moto bugs. So let's see what happens. And of course I miss them, right? Because that's how demos work. Here we go. Now then, as you can see, motobugs weren't spawning. It's because when animals spawn, there's a random number of animals that can be spawned. And for whatever reason, motobugs don't like that. So if we swap these around now, let's find something else to break open. Here we go, crab meat. Yeah, see, now our motobug comes out from the explosion instead of being an animal. So I think since the update they managed to change this a bit. I wasn't able to get as crazy results as you guys saw in that other video, but for the most part everything still works the way it used to. And yeah, I think that's it. So check in the video description. There's going to be a link for the updated cheat table there. The full version of this cheat table will come probably on Saturday. I'll post a new video and it'll be in the description. If you want the full table now, consider becoming a Patreon and supporting my work. You guys have been awesome. I'm up to almost, I want to say almost 4,000 subscribers now. the growth of this channel has just been tremendous in the past month, and I just want to thank you guys again. Every single one of you guys who comments, who shares the video, who just keeps coming back for more, and just I just can't thank you all enough. You guys are awesome. I believe that's it. I will see you guys next time.